Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I am so happy to share this time and this space with you today. Think about a time when someone told you that you could not do something, not because you were not good enough, but simply because of who you were. How did that feel? And now think about this. What if you did it anyway? What if you did it so well, so beautifully, so brilliantly, that the whole world stopped and listened? Today, we travel back to an ancient city by the sea, a city of scrolls and stars, of fire and knowledge. And we tell the story of a woman who stood alone in a world that was not built for her. A woman who asked the deepest questions and gave the most luminous answers. This is the story of Hypatia, a story of knowledge, courage, and a light that was taken too soon. This is Storyline English. And this is your English journey. Stay with me. More than 1,600 years ago, in the great city of Alexandria in Egypt, a girl was born who would become something the ancient world had almost never seen before. A female mathematician, a female philosopher, a female teacher respected by powerful men, by students, by governors, and by ordinary people alike. Her name was Hypatia. Alexandria in those days was one of the most remarkable cities in the world. It had been founded by Alexander the Great, the famous conqueror, and it had grown into a place of extraordinary learning. At the heart of the city stood the Library of Alexandria, a building that held more than 500,000 scrolls, the collected knowledge of the ancient world, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, poetry, philosophy, all of it carefully written, carefully kept. And in this city of knowledge, Hypatia's father, a man named Theon, was one of the greatest minds of his time. He was a mathematician, an astronomer, a professor at the great university connected to the library. He was serious and brilliant, and he had a dream for his daughter. He did not want her to grow up small. He did not want her to grow up silent. He wanted to raise, as some historians have written, the perfect human being. And so, from the very beginning, Hypatia was different. While other girls learned only to manage a household, Hypatia learned mathematics. She learned astronomy. She studied the movements of the stars, the shapes of geometry, the deep puzzles of numbers. Her father taught her everything he knew, and she absorbed it all like light into water, quietly, completely, naturally. She also trained her body. She ran, she swam. She believed that a strong mind needed a strong body to carry it through the world. And this combination, physical strength and intellectual brilliance, gave her something rare. A presence, a kind of gravity that made people stop and pay attention when she entered a room. By the time Hypatia was a young woman, she had already become something extraordinary. But the greatest part of her story was still ahead. As Hypatia grew, so did her reputation. She began to teach, first quietly, then more openly, then publicly, in the grand tradition of the philosophers of Alexandria. She would ride through the city in her chariot, elegant, confident, dressed in the traditional philosopher's cloak, and people would stop to watch her pass. She was, by all accounts, a woman of remarkable beauty and even more remarkable intelligence. But what truly drew people to Hypatia was not her appearance. It was her voice, her clarity, her ability to take the most difficult ideas, the movements of planets, the properties of cones and curves, the deepest questions of existence, and explain them in a way that felt, somehow, like coming home to something true. She taught philosophy in the tradition of Plato and the later thinkers who had followed him. She believed, as Plato had believed, that the world we see with our eyes is only a surface. Beneath everything, there is a deeper order, a deeper truth, and the mind, through careful thinking, through mathematics, through honest questioning, can find its way toward that truth. Students came to her from all over the world, rich and poor, young and old. And something else remarkable, they came from every religion. Christian students sat beside pagan students. Jewish scholars shared conversations with those who followed the old Greek traditions. Hypatia herself did not belong to any one group. She belonged to knowledge. She belonged to truth. And in her classroom, Truth was the only thing that mattered. One of her most famous students, a man named Synesius, later became a Christian bishop. He wrote many letters to Hypatia over the years, and in those letters, we can hear his deep admiration, his love for his teacher, his gratitude for what she had given him. "You are my mother," he wrote to her once. "You are my teacher. You are the greatest gift this city has given me." She never married. She chose, deliberately and freely, a life of the mind, a life of teaching, a life dedicated entirely to the pursuit of understanding. And the city of Alexandria admired her for it. By the year 385, she had become, in the words of one historian, the greatest intellectual in Alexandria. Not the greatest woman, the greatest person. But outside Hypatia's classroom, the world was changing, and it was changing fast. Alexandria was no longer simply a city of learning. It had become a city of conflict. Three great groups, Christians, Jews, and pagans, lived side by side, and the tension between them was growing stronger every year. The old library, that great symbol of ancient knowledge, had already suffered terrible damage. Parts of it had been burned. Parts had been destroyed in riots and wars. The quiet, ordered world of pure learning was under enormous pressure. Into this difficult time came a new man of power. In the year 412, a bishop named Cyril became the religious leader of Alexandria. He was ambitious, aggressive, and deeply suspicious of anything that did not fit neatly inside his view of the world. And Hypatia, this brilliant, independent, pagan woman who taught philosophy to Christians and non-Christians alike, who was close friends with the Roman governor of the city, Hypatia represented everything he feared. She was not political, not in the way Cyril was. She was a thinker, not a fighter. But her friendship with Orestes, the Roman governor, made her a symbol in the power struggle between church and state. Cyril wanted control of the city. Orestes resisted, and the people who supported Cyril began to look at Hypatia with anger. They spread stories about her. They said she used dark magic. They said she was the reason Orestes would not make peace with Cyril. They made her into something she was not, a threat, a danger, an enemy. And Hypatia continued to teach. She continued to ride through the city. She continued to write, to think, to ask questions. Perhaps she knew the danger. Perhaps she believed the truth was stronger than fear. Or perhaps, like many brilliant people, she simply could not stop being herself. In March of the year 415, during a time of deep religious tension in the city, Hypatia was riding home through the streets of Alexandria. A mob appeared. They stopped her chariot. They pulled her from it. And in a terrible act of violence that shocked even many who witnessed it, Hypatia was killed. She was gone. The students who had loved her were devastated. Many of them left Alexandria and never returned. The great tradition of learning that had flourished in that city for so many centuries took a blow from which it never fully recovered. Some historians have written that Hypatia's death marks the beginning of the end of ancient Greek science. A light went out in Alexandria that day, and for a long, long time, the darkness did not lift. But here is the thing about light. It does not simply disappear. It travels. The works that Hypatia helped to preserve, the mathematics of Euclid, the astronomy of Ptolemy, the algebra of Diophantus, survived, passed from hand to hand, city to city, century to century. They eventually reached the scholars of the Renaissance, the scientists of the modern world, and, in a quiet and invisible way, they reached us. Every time a student opens a geometry textbook, every time an astronomer maps the night sky, there is something of Hypatia in that moment. Her careful hands, her patient mind, her refusal to let knowledge die. She became, over the centuries, a symbol of intellectual courage, a symbol of the danger that knowledge faces when fear is more powerful than curiosity, a symbol of what a woman, what any person can become when someone believes in them completely, and when they believe in themselves. There are academic journals named after her. There is a crater on the moon that bears her name. There have been films and novels and poems and plays written about her life. And in every one of them, something of the real Hypatia shines through. That clarity, that dignity, that quiet, unbreakable love of truth. My friend, you listened to this story today, and I hope it stayed with you. Not just as a history lesson, and not just as an English lesson, though I hope it was both of those things too, but as a reminder of something deeper. The world has always had people who tried to make knowledge smaller, who tried to make certain voices quieter, who tried to tell certain people that they did not belong in the conversation. And the world has always had people like Hypatia, who sat down anyway, who thought anyway, who taught anyway. You, right now, learning a language, opening your mind, asking questions, you are doing something that Hypatia would have recognized. You are reaching toward the light. If this story moved you, if it helped you learn even one new word or feel even one new idea, please leave a comment below. Tell me which part stayed with you the most.